God's Law of Adjustment by Adam H. Dickey. Men sometimes find themselves in situations which seem utterly hopeless, but in every case there is a sure way out. The Bible assures us that God will rescue men from the most terrible dangers and the most baffling crises. God will do so through His laws, which exercise absolute and harmonious control of the universe, and because of His limitless love for His children. But to avail ourselves of this ever-present help, we must understand that these laws exist. Man lives by divine decree. He is created, governed, supported, and controlled in accord with the law of God. Law means or implies a rule that is established and maintained by power, that which possesses permanence and stability, that which is unchanging, unyielding, and continuous, the same yesterday and today and forever. The efficiency of law rests entirely in the power that enforces it. A law so-called that is incapable of being enforced is not law, and bears no relationship to law. God is the only creator, the only lawmaker. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. All the power, action, intelligence, life, and government in the universe belong to God, and have always belonged to Him. He is the supreme ruler, and does not share His power with another. Paul said, "The law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus hath made me free from the law of sin and death." So too we know that the law of the Spirit of life frees us from the law of sin and death. Why? Because all the power there is on the side of the law of life, and that which is opposed to this law of life is not law at all. It is only belief. In other words, every law of God has behind it infinite power to enforce it, while the so-called law of sin and death has no foundation, has nothing back of it that it can depend upon. When we understandingly declare that the law of God is present and is in operation, we have invoked or brought into action the whole law and the power of God. We have declared the truth, God's truth, and that truth of God is the law of annihilation, obliteration, and elimination to everything that is unlike Him. When we have stated this truth and applied it, as taught in Christian Science, to any discordant belief with which we are confronted, we have done all that we can do and all that is necessary for us to do in the destruction of any manifestation of error that ever claimed to exist. Error, which has no place in divine mind, claims to exist in human thought. When we have put it out of human thought, we have driven it out of the only place where it ever pretended to have a foothold. And thereafter, to us, it becomes nothing. There is a law of God that is applicable to every conceivable phase of human experience, and no situation or condition can present itself to mortal thought which can possibly exist outside of the direct influence of this infinite law. The effect of the operation of law is always to correct and govern, to harmonize and adjust. Whatever is out of order or discordant can have no basic principle of its own, but must come under the direct government of God through what might be termed God's law of adjustment. We are not responsible for the carrying out of this law. In fact, we can do nothing in any way to increase, stimulate, or intensify the action or operation of divine mind, since it is constantly present, always operative, and never ceases to assert and declare itself when rightly appealed to. All we have to do is to scientifically bring this law of adjustment into contact with our unfinished problem. And when we have done this, we have performed our full duty. Someone might say, how can the law of God operating mentally affect my problem, which is physical? This is easily understood when it is realized that the problem is not physical, but mental. First, we must know that all is mind, and that there is no such thing as matter, and thus exclude from thought the offending material sense. The original definition of the word disease is lack of ease, discomfort, uneasiness, trouble, disquiet, annoyance, injury. Disease, says Mary Baker Eddy, the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, is an image of thought externalized. The mental state is called a material state. Whatever is cherished in mortal mind as the physical condition is imaged forth on the body. This also applies to heat, cold, hunger, poverty, or any form of discord, all of which are mental, though mortal mind regards them as material states. It therefore can easily be seen how the law of God, which is mental, can be applied to a physical problem. In reality, the problem is not physical, but purely mental, and is the direct result of some thought cherished in mortal mind. If a man were drowning in mid-ocean with apparently no human help at hand, there is a law of God which, when rightly appealed to, would bring about this rescue. Does the reader doubt this? Then he must believe that it is possible for man to find himself in a condition where God cannot help him. If one were in a burning building, or a railroad accident, or if he were in a den of lions, there is a law of God which could at once adjust the apparent material circumstances so as to bring about his complete deliverance. It is not necessary for us to know in each individual case just what this law of God is, nor how it is going to operate, and an attempted investigation into the why and wherefore might only serve to interfere with its operation and hinder the demonstration. Any fear on our part, occasioned by the fact that divine mind does not know of our plight, or that infinite wisdom lacks the intelligence necessary to bring about a rescue, should be instantly put out of thought. On page 62 of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, Mrs. Eddy writes, "The divine mind, which forms the bud and the blossom, will care for the human body, even as it clothes the lily, but let no mortal interfere with God's government by thrusting in the laws of erring human concepts." The trouble with us usually is that we want to know just how God is going to help us, and when the good results are to be experienced. Then we will pass judgment upon it and decide whether we are ready to trust our case in His hands. Let us see, then, where God's law of adjustment operates. God has no need of being adjusted. The only place where there is any demand for adjustment is in human consciousness. But unless human consciousness appeals to the divine law, unless it is willing and ready to lay down its own sense of human will and stop human planning, put aside human pride, ambition, and vanity, there is no room for the law of adjustment to operate.